Okay, let me know.
All right, you've got 7:03 and now you're live.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the May 26th meeting of the City of Oneonta Planning Commission. This is a special meeting intended to go over the sketch plan presented by Springbrook. They are proposing a mixed-use infill development on the Ford Block building, which for those of you who aren't familiar with the address, it's the building which contains Key Bank, Latte Lounge, and Green Toad as tenants. I believe we are joined tonight by Mr. Seth Haight, Michelle Sherwood, and Mr. Scott Townsend, all who represent in various capacities Springbrook. That said, since this is a sketch plan conference, this is a chance for you guys to explain the project to the commission, what you guys are intending to do, how the project is designed, and what relevant information that we would need for the purposes of site plan review. So why don't you guys take it away?
Sure thing. Danny, thank you. And thanks to everyone for giving us this time and giving us a chance to talk about the project. I'm going to introduce Scott Townsend in a moment, who is from 3T Architects, our engineer for the project, our architect for the project. He does wear many hats and is very good at many things, but he is an architect, so we'll introduce him in a second. But just to give you an overview of the project, some of you were on actually on our tour last week and some on our meeting last week. But to go through it, essentially it is that space that Danny mentioned, going all the way from Key Bank, actually up through Green Toad, Latte Lounge, Subway, and then the walk-through breezeway that connects Main Street to the parking garage. A couple of years ago, in Springbrook, we were looking at a number of factors that would change the landscape for us in terms of some of our strategic planning factors. We really looked at some important things that serve a number of our goals. And we started off with a planning process with our board and a lot of our key stakeholders. And we were looking for a project that would accomplish a few things. We are in constant need of professionals to come to Oneonta. And in many cases, when we recruit them, bring them to Oneonta, we're looking for affordable housing and looking for young professional housing that is not student rental housing. And oftentimes we struggle to find it for people that are trying to relocate, that want to live in the city somewhere and be close to things and services, but don't want a student rental. We're also always looking for opportunities for our individuals that we serve for integrated housing as well. We have a successful project in Johnson City where we have a unit behind the hospital, UHS Hospital. In Johnson City, it's 2 restored Endicott Johnson shoe factories that house over 100 units, and 20 of those are reserved for people with developmental disabilities that are integrated throughout the whole building, and they're able to live independently. We also are looking for employment opportunities for people that we serve, and have talked with a number of the partners within the building about opportunities that they would have to serve in their businesses where that could take place. Another big thing for us is establishing a marketing presence within Oneonta. We have a large footprint, as you all know, in Oneonta and Otsego County and beyond. And we're looking for other creative ways to recruit employees and to get information about Springbrook. We have that clinic space out by Fox Hospital, and then of course our Oneonta campus down by Price Chopper and Brooks, but we don't have a central location walkable that's really central to the city. So we got thinking about that project, got looking at downtown Oneonta and thinking, is there an opportunity for us to collaborate with the city and work toward a project that would take advantage of the beauty of some of the upper floors of the existing buildings that are within Oneonta and create that housing that we're looking for. We started to look at the inventory of what was on the market and worked with a realtor who indicated that the Ford Block was available for sale. And after we toured and looked at the upstairs and saw the potential that the 2 upstairs floors have, it sold itself to us in terms of a concept. It is so central to downtown. has wonderful tenants that are in the building now that would provide those employment opportunities. It's the right size for us. It's about 10,000 square feet per floor. We're talking about 22, 23 units, depending on how we configure. And it really, we feel, would be a shot in the arm for a revitalization of a beautiful building. We see it as a urban renewal restoration, where many of the surfaces that are already there are kept and restored. And that sort of leads into Scott, who is an architect that came to us because we were looking for someone that specialized in that urban repurposing, that worked with a building and the bones that we think are beautiful. When you go in the upper floors, those that were there on our tour, you see the beauty of how those windows look out over the valley. And the other side, you have a bustling downtown that would be attractive to the population we're looking to serve. So from our standpoint is, could we pool together resources with our partnership with the City of Oneonta, with Empire State Development, the Mohawk Valley Regional Economic Development Council, DRI? Could we pool that together and have this project take off and make this project work? So we spent the last couple of years almost in the planning phase. Obviously, COVID caused us to hit the pause button because projects like this just weren't really being worked on in the same way during COVID. We were more focused on keeping everyone safe at Springbrook. So as the pandemic has subsided a bit, we're now back and working toward a timeline to get this project off the ground. So part of what we know that we want to do is work with the Planning Commission on looking over what our plans are in more depth. And we knew that this sketch review process was an opportunity to ask some of those preliminary questions. Scott Townsend from 3T Architects, like I said, came to us and has a lot of experience with these types of buildings. And for us, it's been a natural fit because of a lot of the work, not only that he's done already, but the vision that he had for the building when he came down and presented to us in the early phases. So unless there's any questions about what I've already said, I'm going to turn it over to Scott, who can guide us through some of the work that he's done with the Ford block so far.
Thank you, Seth. What I'll do is I'll walk you through the building. You know, as you guys know, and I don't say anything, Springbrook is a great program. What I'm going to do is share my screen and walk you through the building and what we plan on doing. Give me 1 second. First, I'm going to put this one up. Everyone can see the screen, correct?
Yeah.
So you guys are embedded in Oneonta, so I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know tonight. All I'm going to do is hone you in on which building it is. Obviously, I know you probably all knew it as described. I can speak as an outsider. I'm up in the Capital District, and it was just one of those buildings when I was called in to look at it. It's one of those buildings that everyone would love to have in their community. And then obviously, as we all know, as we sit and speak today, the upper 2 floors are vacant and have been for years, obviously decades. And so it's a great property to develop. One thing that's interesting about your property, which is very unusual, is, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in depth in a little bit, is there's this walkway that actually connects the municipal parking lot with the bridge. It's a covered bridge, and it becomes the access point all the way Main Street. So this project already is a private-public partnership in so many ways. So it just naturally goes that way. So having said that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up one other presentation, and this is something we showed the council the other night. And I thought it was a good way of showing you the project also. And what I'll do is I'll be fairly brief, and then we can certainly have dialogue and answer, questions at the end would probably be the best way. But like I said before, this is it's an exquisite building. I think it's important to know our practice. We do about probably 30% of our practice. We go through SHPO and National Park Service, which is State Historic Preservation. And we work with a lot of historic buildings. Our goal is always to work with the building and not try to transform it. We try to reinvigorate it. It's a beautiful building. We're going to be replacing windows, repointing, but our goal is not to transform it. It's to bring it back to life and fully realize that. A lot of what you're seeing here is stuff that Seth already hit on. It's, you can see the addresses. Right now, you're going to see our layouts. It's 24 right now, but we do have to vet through some things. It will not go over that. And I'll show you a little bit more in detail, but I think the photographs speak a lot. That it has been stripped out and it's ready to be transformed and brought back to life. And then this is just another photograph, obviously, but this kind of sums up everything that Seth was talking about. We're going to not only be respectful of the outside, but we're going to work with what is left on the inside. And you'll see we worked with some of the brick walls, some of the bearing walls that are already there. We don't want to violate its integrity, shall we say. We want to work with it and add to it and enhance it. The one thing that's tricky is the upper floors right now do not have any handicap access. And that's one of the reasons for the elevator that we'll look at in a second. And the one thing I found extremely unusual when I went in there, I've never seen it before. You cannot get from the second to the third floor on a stair. There's only a little ladder. It's an odd situation. I don't know why it came about that way. So we have to do that work too. What you're seeing here is the proposed layout as we have it. We're going to stack it. This is the second and third floor. I won't go into a lot of detail, but it's a lot of one bedroom, some studios, and a two. This right here is the corner where Key Bank is, to orient you. And the front is the main street. And then the rear is on the back, overlooking the garage and the valley. And it's self-explanatory. We're not looking to change it. We're looking to upgrade it and replace things that we need to replace and look at the brick. And I'm sure we have not looked at it yet, but I'm sure we'll do some appropriate and tasteful lighting for some security at the building, which we'll get to. The thing that's interesting with the city, like I was saying, the private-public partnership, which you guys know better than I do, is that you're seeing the existing walkway that goes from the bridge, which you're seeing on the upper right-hand corner, and it goes into this door, which leads you into what is now the lobby, going back out to the main street. We're proposing to transform it for a few reasons. One is to upgrade it and to get it so that it becomes an elevator lobby that can get up to the upper floors. But I think as importantly, it's a first impression when you're coming into Oneonta. And I think all of us want to take that seriously and make a best presentation. Also, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to get other people involved, other stakeholders involved, like the Historic Society or anything else that if you want to do gallery space or notifications. I mean, that'll be up to you as a community, but we want to provide the opportunity. So this right here is just some images of we call them an inspiration board. And we look at, what it is that we can do to enhance the space. There's some existing brick walls. The bridge going across has some existing cables and turnbuckle systems and exposed wood. So we wanted to play off of that a little bit. And this becomes really the public space. So this is the new elevator that you're seeing. And then this is going out to the main street, and we created a pathway, and we're keeping the stairs that go down to the lower floor. And then we're really, we're painting everything. We're dropping in a new ceiling. We're getting in more appropriate lighting. And then this right here is we're playing off the wood of the bridge coming across and passing it through. And then we just, the alcove is for the upper floor. So we got the mailboxes and everything and the little sign for it. And this gets into a lot of details you don't need to get into, but the outcome of these drawings are this. And what I was saying before is where we could possibly, you could work with, whether it's telling a history of Oneonta where people can stop, it becomes a little bit of a quasi museum, or notification of specials, or even places where local people, local businesses can advertise. That's, again, that's up to you. But again, this is the elevator and this is looking back towards the bridge. And really what we're looking at is, you know, we've already presented to the council. This is a big project. It's over $4.5 million, but it's a little bit of a private public partnership, hopefully. In our timeline, we're hoping that, you know, if everything goes well with the approvals and the bidding and the construction, that this could be ready by fall of next year is what we're looking at. So we're here and we're here to answer any questions. So with that, I'll stop sharing the screen unless somebody wants to go back on it, I can.
Sure. So I guess I'll start. This, I'm sure you know, the City of Oneonta site plan review law has a number of plans that are outlined in section 375 of our code, such as the site plan, grading plan, utilities plan, building plan, among others. At this time, will you be requesting any waivers from these documents? I think some of them aren't necessary, but I just wanted to see, you know, if you were, you know, wanted us to waive any of them, or you felt that some of them weren't necessary to submit. Just so we're on the same page.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I think in our opinion that a site plan survey, certainly showing contours and stuff, we do not have one, and we don't feel it's necessary because all of the work that we're doing is within the envelope of the existing building, and any other work we'll do might be on the surface of the building, replacing or something.
Okay, so everything else, you know, you're not doing any grading. The utilities are already built. You're not adding any new ones, right? Landscaping, do you anticipate doing any? This is really within the envelope of the building, so you're not really doing any landscaping. The color renderings, you already have those, it seems. The building plans and detail plans, those kind of, you already are presenting those anyway in your presentation. I already saw some.
Yeah, we will not have full construction documents until permitting, but.
Of course, yeah. So just to kind of anticipate, you know, if you were to come to the site plan review, you know, being on the same page with respect to what you need. So that way, just isolate that. I had a, so you mentioned that the City of Oneonta also has, it's in the process of adopting a form-based code, which kind of closely follows the DRI design standards as part of the grant. I know that in order to receive grant funding, you have to comply with the design standards. So that's kind of already foregone conclusion. I just wanted to make sure that it was mentioned here that the DRI does have design standards. This project is anticipated, just to clarify, that you do anticipate complying with those design standards for the exterior of the building, and then with any work on the walkway. That's kind of all I had for right now. I also did, you know, during the Common Council meeting, you had mentioned that the Springbrook will be seeking a pilot, but will be paying, taxes on the building.
Correct.
Okay, and you will be coordinating with SHPO as far as kind of compliance with historical, preservation of the Main Street historical character, which is good.
Yep.
All right.
Correct.
Do any of the other commissioners have questions?
Danny, I do.
Sure, go for it, Shane.
I have a couple questions. My first would be that walkway from the parking garage to Main Street. Is there, first of all, does the city have an easement? I mean, what's the guarantee that that's going to remain open to the public? Is there an easement for access there?
Yes, there currently is an easement that has been a long-standing document. Michelle, I'm not sure. Do we have a date on when that original document that? No, I don't think there is, but it is in place, and it is our intention to honor that. We're
Okay.
going into that partnership, in mind and wanting to enhance it, as Scott said, for that pass through to access the city.
And so along that note, I appreciate that clarification. If it's going to be open to the public to walk through there, I'm just concerned, what is the security? I mean, what's to stop anyone from just hopping on that elevator and going
Yeah,
up?
question. So the elevator concept that we have proposed is that there will be public access to the Water Street level and the Main Street level. And then a limited restricted access to the top floor levels that would be controlled either by a kiosk or a passcode for tenants. So anyone can use the first 2 floors, but the top 2 floors, some hotels have it like that, where there are floors that are not accessible without a swipe card or a badge. This would operate in a similar. And in terms of security in the breezeway, I know that we had some clarification from the mayor's office that the breezeway is locked at a certain hour of the night and open in the morning. And we want to work with the city to while we want to provide access for the residents of the building, we could do the same thing on the door, have a passcode to the either door on either end or a badge. But they otherwise could be locked at those same hours as they are operating now.
Thank you. And I don't want to take too much time, Danny. I'll be quick here, but the basement floor, looking through your plans, it's unclear to me. Are there any plans for that basement level floor on Water Street?
Yeah, I can show the plan real quick, but there's not a lot to show. We do have to develop it a little bit. Give me 1 second.
While Scott's doing that, I should say, we see that downstairs, the basement floor that has the walkout access to Water Street, we see opportunity there. And some of the spaces are not occupied at all. And there is a tenant in one of the spaces, but it's certainly with the proximity to Main Street and that large wide sidewalk that's out there, it seems like an opportunity for further development. We haven't, had anything proposed to us yet, but we were thinking in concept about what would be there, and would certainly like to look for a partner down in that space as well. KeyBank rent the lowest level of that same level. They have that for their storage, which is a large area. And we think that they will continue to use that space for that purpose.
Yep. What I'd like to, and I'll get back to the basement in a second. And Seth, now that you mention it, one thing I'm asking if it would be okay with the board, if we end up doing anything down at the sidewalk, which has not been developed yet, and we don't want to hinder our progress for this. So we'd like to ask that we consider that possibly a different project. So in other words, if that happens, we would come before the board again and present that separately. So that, because I know we have a timeline that's pretty aggressive for the building. So we'll be seeking approvals on the building, knowing that might come about. And especially because we're not going to start building probably, or we wouldn't need to construct that until the spring anyway.
Yeah.
Year to parallel the building. Am I correct, Seth?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think we would come back with a plan when and if that happens.
Yep. And then getting back to your question, on the lower floor, there's a little bit of refinement we need to do, but for handicap accessibility, we need to have access to the elevator from Water Street so that anyone that has accessibility issues. So there is right now a storage area that we are taking down a wall and we're refinishing everything, and they would have access. The one thing that has been brought to our attention is there may be a need for Springbrook to have an office down here. We haven't developed that yet, but in terms of the public space, it would be accessing this elevator to get up to the main level, which is the main street. That answer your question?
It does, yeah, I think it does. And my last one, that maybe this is more for Steven, but parking requirements, or for Danny, maybe can answer this, but under the current code, we have a parking minimum, right? I know we're moving towards the form base, but we haven't adopted that yet. So is there a variance needed from?
I can answer that. There are provisions of the zoning code that allow the planning commission to approve or allow for like the minimal amount of parking required. We can also, we're able to have a lot of leeway in how much parking we deem is required. So we're able to exceed the minimum parking requirements, or I guess decrease that amount to almost essentially zero.
Well, this is zero.
Yeah, if we so want to. They're like, I may look at the specific provisions, but I believe
300-61 is where you're going to look.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. 300-51. So let's see.
And Steven, that new code is not going to be adopted anytime soon, right?
I mean, it's not going to be adopted in time for this particular project. I provided Springbrook with the draft form so that they could kind of see where we're headed with that. The thing I think
I've got it.
The thing you can kind of look at is like the parking is required to be in the zone, and it's required to be within 200 feet of the site. And then, as Danny was saying, the current code, and it was upheld in court, you're allowed flexibility in the review of the parking.
Yeah, so it under 300-61 Part G 1 and 2, we can require less off-street parking or loading if warranted based on the information presented. And that gives us, and it's also the stated preference of the Planning Commission in the city of Oneonta by extension to require as little parking as possible. And in that zone, people are allowed to share parking. That's also encouraged as well. So that essentially creates a situation in which there's so much excess parking in downtown that the amount required could essentially be zero, because the data and the parking study clearly indicate that even if every DRI project was fully implemented and fully occupied, there would still be an excess reserve of about 20% of parking.
Yeah, Danny, I'm in full agreement with you. I just wanted to check on the
Yeah. I was just pointing that out. So I think, like, there's the amount of parking shouldn't be an issue, again, because the parking study was very conservative. It assumed full implementation of the DRI, and since several projects weren't implemented, many of which required almost double the parking of the Dietz slot or Dietz Street project, and this one combined with that one wouldn't even come close to that.
So another thing I wanted to throw out there, I believe his name's Chad. Is that right, Scott? Chad?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah, I discussed this with Chad, and he did send me an additional section of narrative that is part of the site plan review process, but I just didn't get all that together in time for this particular meeting. So that has been addressed as part of their application.
Right.
Okay, so I'm sure we'll see it again in site plan, and since there is, even in the seeker review process, we'll still have to do a coordinated review anyway, and so this will give us even more chance to go over parking. But I think it's also important to stress that whether or not parking itself is not an environmental impact, actually excess parking is an environmental detriment to the city. I think that, infill development of this kind is something that the city desperately needs, particularly in the area of affordable housing. So that said, I think the city takes the issue of parking and vehicular circulation very seriously, but I think that in this case, if there's anything that we have a good handle on, it's parking.
Danny, I got a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Your Seth or Scott, your best guess, what will be the total bed count of when, assuming everything, when it goes through and it's all filled up?
Sure. Scott, how many doubles do we have versus singles? You're probably best to answer that.
Yeah, I don't have it printed out right in front of me, but I think we only have one or two.
It's two bedrooms,
Thank you.
6 suites.
6 studios, right?
Yep.
So if we do the math real quick, that's 16 one-bedrooms. So you have 16, 20. So you have 26, assuming one bed per studio.
Okay. That'll be a nice jolt to the business community.
Yeah, we hope so.
Danny, I've got a quick question,
Sure, go
if
ahead.
I can jump in here. And I don't believe this was asked at the council meeting, and I've had a number of people ask me, and I didn't have an answer for them. When this building is completed, will the apartments only be for Springbrook employees, or will this be open to anybody?
It's open to anybody.
Okay.
We wouldn't be restrictive in that way. So yeah, this is open.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Seth.
And,
No problem.
I'm sorry, one more question. When you're talking about affordable housing, is that some percentage below market rate, or how is that calculated?
It's calculated at a percentage based on average monthly income for the area. And it just so happens that calculation is right in line with what we were targeting in our pro forma to charge for rents based on the individuals that we're hoping move in.
Okay.
So it's right around that 900 to 1,000 per unit, runs right in that 80 to around 80% of average monthly income for our area.
Okay. Thanks, Seth.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all.
Do anybody else have any questions, or does anybody else have any questions, I should say? Okay, so
This
the
might be-
next,
I
Go
got
ahead.
one question, Danny. This might be
Sure.
kind of a silly thing, but where's the like the garbage refuse area for the tenants?
Yeah,
That's not silly, Shane.
that is actually not a silly question. And I say because we do a lot of housing, we have to work that out. That's one of the things we have to work out. The basement area, because there's an area that when it wasn't us, it was somebody else did an analysis of the building or our existing conditions, did not, was not able to get into it because it was a locked area. So we're hoping that we can put it down in the basement area so they can go straight down the elevator and take care of it, and then just pull it out to the back on Water Street. But that's one of those details we'll have to work through a little bit as we develop it. But thanks for the question. It's legitimate.
so we'll keep an eye out. So that is part of the site plan review process. We just want to, that's a good question, Shane. Thanks. Okay, so are there any other questions for the representatives from Springbrook?
I just had a quick question about the seeker process. So I guess this is more of a question for Danny. Where do we see this going as a seeker review?
My thought, I don't think that with the new standards around type 1, I don't think that this is a type 1 action. Do you agree?
I almost think it's a type 2 action, and that's the only reason I'm asking, because I think it falls under the reuse of a residential commercial structure. Blah, 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 where the residential commercial use is a permitted use under the applicable zoning law or ordinance. So, I mean,
Yeah.
other than, obviously talking to Shippo, I think this is going to be, I'm just off the cuff. I just didn't know what you guys thought
Yeah,
Based on-
it could be type 2, it could be, it could also be unlisted, you know, considering the historic district, but, yeah, I think that's an issue, you know, that the commission we'd have to think about that. Cause I think that, it will trigger site plan review, so there will be some review, you know, plenty of review. Then I think that we look at the full scope of the project and then classify the action. Cause I could see an argument for type 2. I don't really see, you know, my initial thought was it'd be unlisted considering the,
Historic district.
potential impact on the historic resources and the fact that there's another reviewing agency.
Right.
Just because, you know, it is you know, if we're thinking about environmental sensitivity for within the built environment, that's probably the only thing that I would imagine would justify something going beyond type 2. And so I guess like kind of if I were to think, you know, I guess giving it a little bit of thought, I would be inclined, you know, to hear from SHPO. And so I think that a type unlisted action would likely be the right way to go, just to make sure that they've had a chance to review the project design and use and make sure that everything's in line. And then it probably would behoove us in light of other projects such as the Lofts on Dietz, what happened with that, with the litigation, just to have the chance to write a negative declaration or a secret determination, I should say, and also a resolution of site plan approval should that be granted. So I think going a more thorough route would probably be the way I would feel right now. What do you
Okay.
guys, what does the rest of the commission think?
I think you're right.
Because I think that with the Lofts on Dietz project and the attention and public controversy around parking and other issues around infill development downtown or new development downtown, I think insulating ourselves from the possibility of legal challenge would probably be the way to go. I think that the project timelines would still be able to be met considering the nature of the project being, you know, an existing project on the, you know, an existing, being a project surrounding, or I guess within an existing building, and not requiring new, you know, expansion of the parcel or expansion of the structure and a lot of new construction. So I
So
think,
Danny, I was just reading the seeker rule, but you want to have it as unlisted? Is that what you said?
yeah, I mean, see, because that would, you could probably make the case that it is, as you know, Stephen and I were just talking, or as we said, is like, it could be classified as a type 2 as per the regulations, but it also lies within the historic Main Street district. And until the regulations were amended, that in itself would have triggered a type 1 prior to the secret amendments that were made a couple of years ago. So I think, you know, so.
Can we classify it tonight?
No,
No,
you can't do that.
Okay,
because we don't have the full application in front of us.
got it.
But that could be something we could consider. So once we see the full site plan, we could classify the action. I think right now I'm leaning towards, you know, unlisted. But I think that we could also, you know, as part of the site plan review process, give SHPO a chance to weigh in as well. There's multiple chances, you know. But I think if we were to classify it as a type 2, we would need a kind of a rationale, a more, you know, a written rationale of some kind classifying it, because that would mean the end of the environmental review component of this project.
The only reason I ask is I just wanted to see, obviously a type 1 action would involve additional time. So I just kind of wanted to see what your thought on the, you know, just the preliminary understandings to what you thought this would be.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think that there, you know, we could do there's no other involved municipality. We would refer, at that meeting, the initial meeting, we'd refer the project to the county, I believe. And
I don't even know if this would require a 239M.
Well,
No.
Stephen, I was going to ask you, is Main Street considered a state highway? Because it's Route
Yeah.
23
it's Route 7.
or Route 7, sorry. Is it? I didn't.
Is it all the way through though? Or is it just the intersection of Chestnut?
I don't know.
It's just the intersection of Chestnut, I believe.
It's 23.
I mean,
that would be the only triggering,
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
can obviously just file a 239M tomorrow.
You can always file it, and the department can always say it's not required, or
Yeah, yes, 23. But it looks like it. Yeah, I think it'd be worth filing, and if they determine that it doesn't, if the county determines that it doesn't trigger 239M, then that would help us.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, I'll just send it all tomorrow.
well, is it near the? Is it within 500 feet of that county building?
The county building.
Yeah, 242 Main.
I'd have to look.
I don't
Yeah,
think it
we'd
is.
have to-
I don't know what. No, I don't think it is, because that's way down, right?
No, it's just on the other side of the plaza.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not that.
you
So
might
what
as
I'll
well
do
submit it
tomorrow,
then.
I'll put it on my bucket list of things to
Yeah.
inquire about it. Maybe I'll even give the county a call.
Yep.
So that way we can just be all kind of buttoned down on that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why we're having this meeting, so we can figure this kind of thing,
Yeah,
More
so I think that, so if we're circling back to the environmental review, I think that as long as we write some sort of statement classifying the action, whether it's type 2 or unlisted, I think as long as we have that in writing and part of the official record, we'd be okay.
Right.
And explaining our rationale. Considering that it's in the historic district, that rationale should include the fact that we await, that we'll be giving SHPO a chance to weigh in on the project to evaluate historic impacts, potential impacts to the historic district. And then as part of the site plan review law, so whatever, the applicant's clearly committed, based on what we've heard today, to comply with the DRI design standards and pay special attention to the historic nature of the 4-block building. So, and we'll be able to use elements from the site plan approval, the site plan review application to supplement that. So,
Yeah, I just looked it up. It's 312 feet to that, roughly.
so that would require, 239M then.
Yeah.
Okay, so I
County
will
or
do that.
state land with public building or institution. So, yeah.
So I'll do all that tomorrow when I get to work.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do that now, and we could have it back in time for even the next.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. If I can get it in, first thing tomorrow morning, I'll send all of what we have, and then, we'll be ahead of the game.
Yep.
Maybe
Even
that'd
better
be
than
good.
movies. It's like a fun Friday night.
Yeah. And I guess we so there's also another thing that you may want to kind of discuss offline after the meeting would probably be when we're going to open back up to the public. But the agendas are all on the website, and and then Carrie, once we have that site plan review meeting, I assume you'll be uploading all the other documentation that was shared with us tonight up there as well for the public to review. Right?
Absolutely. Once it's designated as a larger project, something that'll require the extensive review, we'll build its own page as we did with Hawk Hill.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions about the, Springbrook project?
Well, it sounds like a great project. I just,
Yeah, it does. It's,
and I just want to say that every time I hear Shippo, I think I'm watching a Marx Brothers movie.
I know, right? Sounds like the name of a, comedy character or some kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
No, but
middle
it's,
density.
Seth, congratulations. This sounds like a great project.
Well, hey, listen, thank you, Dan, and thanks to this group of people. You guys are really, been great so far to work with. We appreciate the partnership. We're excited. We're stakeholders in Oneonta, and we're proud of Oneonta to do what we can to be part of the revitalization. And it seems like everybody's really receptive of what we're trying to do. So I do appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Middle density housing is something we desperately need in this community. Infill development, I'm asked all the time, why aren't we doing more to provide more upper floor housing? And we say we're looking for developers, and we're just happy that a local company like yours is so invested in the community. So we're very grateful for your presence here and grateful for your interest.
Appreciate your time, Danny. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. If there's no other business to attend to, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. We're adjourned. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming.
Have a nice weekend.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care.